Good evening. My presentation today was on the principal agent problem and centered around incentives and compensation. So my article was it was called California Dealerships and Other Employees Win Wage and Hour Clarity. Court upholds hourly plus flag bonus plans. That is a really big mouthful, but essentially it was a article put out by Fisher Phillips, and this is a law firm that is very centered and interested in employee-employer relationships. Kind of, it reminded me a little bit of maybe what like a kind of a union would be, but this is more of like kind of from a law agency standpoint. And what they try to do is they try and find justice for employees when employers are being unjust, unfair, or in some way not upholding the law. And so in this case, they took to court a case about the dealerships, these technicians were unhappy about their wages. They took them to court in California. So the technicians didn't feel they were being compensated. They thought that their wage, like they thought that they weren't getting paid minimum wage. And their other big one is called the no borrowing rule. And this is pretty much where technicians they thought they weren't being paid for like downtime. So they thought they were only getting paid for the time that they were working on cars, not in between cars, filling out paperwork, ordering parts, and other things, which would be called like non-productive hours or downtime. So the courts actually ended up, they checked out a bunch of different dealerships in California, looking at these specific issues that the dealerships had or the technicians had. And after reviewing it, they actually sided with the dealerships, saying that that technicians were getting paid almost double minimum wage, that they were getting paid for that the no borrowing rule was not being violated, that they were getting paid for downtime. And but they did suggest that, hey, like going forward, even though we have ruled in your favor, dealerships, we would suggest that you look at your existing compensation package, and do things like if technicians are bringing in their own tools, make sure that you're compensating them correctly for that. And then minimum wage requirements are to change in 2026. So make sure that the technicians should also reflect that. But here's the thing, like, should the dealerships actually go and do what the court suggested? Like, they've obviously already going above and beyond, like, the minimum wage requirements. Like, is it a good idea for the dealerships to do this? Um, the answer is yes, and that is because there's something called a principal agent problem. So, well, briefly, what the principal agent problem is that there's the principals or the bosses, managers, and then you have your employees. And a lot of times there'll be like a conflict of interest in trying to motivate the agents to do what you want them to do without having to like micromanage them and watch over their shoulder all day, every day. And some of the different ways you can do that is you can do bonuses, promotions, stocks, and bonds. We definitely don't want our manager looking over our shoulder telling us what to do, but that is obviously an option. And these are some of the things that they can do to avoid that principal agent problem. And the reason why you want to do that is because if you adequately compensate your employees, a lot of times they will be self-motivated to do the work on their own without any oversight. And so that's kind of the balance that you want to make. So in order to avoid this principal agent problem, um, there is an increase in knowledge that like car dealerships need to know. Like things are becoming more electric. There's more computers in cars. Just the other day, I had to take my car in, and it took them 4 hours to change a windshield, which is like 4 times longer than it was the last time I had to take a car in. And the reason why it took so long is because they had to recalibrate my whole like car system to make sure, like with the new windshield in there. I thought it was crazy. That's like one example of how much more knowledge technicians have to have. So if managers like li take the time to listen to their employees, especially in this case, like the dealerships or with their technicians, maybe what the technicians are really saying is, hey, we actually have to know more and more knowledge, and then we'd like to be compensated for that. So, um, some of the ways that dealerships could go about making their technicians happy and would also bring a value to the company would be like compensating for knowledge, giving bonuses around certifications, um, Even just little things like, hey, if you get your car done 5 minutes before, then those $5 go into your pocket instead of the company's. And this would encourage like the employee growth. It would again make the employees and technicians happier, and it would avoid the principal agent problem. And so that is it. Thank you for listening to my presentation.